The ring on your hand belongs to my mother." The room stilled. Crystal chimed. A young CEO in a white suit turned at the center of the Montclair dining room, her breath unsteady. "Waiter, wait," she said, voice breaking across the linen and silver. "If you look again, you're fired." "I'm not looking," he answered softly. "I won't." Then, as if laying a warm coat across cold shoulders, "I'm blind when you need me to be." His name was Liam Hayes, single father, night janitor who moved like a shadow between tables and glass. Her name was Charlotte Pierce, 27, America's frost-touched business darling. Minutes earlier, she had been immaculate and untouchable. Now mascara tracked the truth at the edge of her eyes. Liam set a small paper cup of ginger tea beside her plate. No lecture, no price. Only a way to breathe. Across town, a little girl taped a smiley sticker to a lunch bag. Nora, age 6. Liam's whole world. On the handle of his cleaning cart, a frayed gray scarf waited like a promise he wasn't ready to break. What if the only person who saw the real Charlotte was the man everyone else refused to see? Liam Hayes was 37 years old, though the deep lines around his eyes made him look older some days. Broad-shouldered from years of manual work, his brown hair forever out of place, he was the kind of man people passed without seeing. At Montclair, the city's most exclusive restaurant, he pushed his cart of linens and polished glasses like a ghost, existing only to make others comfortable. At home, though, Liam was more than invisible labor. He was father, mother, protector, and anchor to his daughter, Nora. Their apartment was a small 2-bedroom in a worn brick building near the river. It smelled of oatmeal in the mornings and soap in the evenings. The walls were covered with Nora's crayon drawings, stick figures of herself, her father, and a smiling woman with wings. Above the kitchen table hung one picture in particular, her father, holding a mop like a sword shielding her from waves of fire. 3 years earlier, Liam's wife had died after a short, cruel illness. Since then, he had built his life around Nora's needs. He walked her to school before his night shifts, clapped at her piano recitals, and folded her clothes with the same careful precision he once reserved for his wife's dresses. The gray wool scarf that trailed from his cleaning cart had belonged to her. He touched it before every shift, as if reminding himself that even in grief he carried her presence forward. Nora adored her father. To her, he wasn't a janitor. He was the man who made every scraped knee better, who listened to bedtime stories with genuine wonder, who never forgot to pack a smiley sticker in her lunch bag. "Daddy," she often said, "you're my hero, even if nobody else sees your cape." The truth was, Liam didn't want the world to see him. He kept his head low, his hands busy, his life measured in ordinary acts of care. He wasn't chasing wealth or recognition. He wanted only to give his daughter stability, to be present at every important moment, to keep promises that too many fathers broke. Yet fate does not leave invisible men untouched. That winter night in Montclair's dining room, when Charlotte Pierce, glittering CEO with the world at her feet, spoke to him as if he mattered, Liam felt the quiet lines of his life begin to shift. Charlotte Pierce had been raised in glass towers. Her grandfather built Pierce Global from steel, oil, and politics. Her father expanded it through mergers and ruthless acquisitions. By the time Charlotte inherited the company at 27, she was already on the cover of financial magazines, praised as the youngest female CEO in the state. On the surface, Charlotte's life looked enviable. Her penthouse overlooked the city skyline, a space decorated with modern art and rare wines. She dined at gala tables where waiters poured champagne like water-attended charity auctions, where a single bid cost more than a family's yearly income, and signed contracts that made investors cheer. But luxury has a weight of its own. Charlotte's father had taught her early that emotion was weakness. "Power doesn't cry," he said. "If you need to weep, do it alone." She learned to smile politely at business rivals, to hide exhaustion behind flawless makeup, to measure her worth in stock prices and market share. Every handshake was a negotiation, every dinner a transaction. Behind the marble and chandeliers, though, Charlotte carried a private wound. 1 year earlier, she had been trapped during a charity gala when a hotel caught fire. Smoke choked the hallways, and panic swept the guests. Just when she thought she would collapse, a man had pulled her through the smoke. Strong arms, steady eyes, no questions asked. He vanished into the night before she could learn his name. That memory lived inside her sharper than any headline. While she told herself it was gratitude, the truth was more complicated. In a world where everyone wanted something, her money, her influence, her signature, someone had risked his life and asked for nothing. That kind of courage haunted her. Charlotte searched quietly. She hired investigators, combed employee records, replayed security footage. Nothing. The man had disappeared like smoke. And so she returned to her empire, masking her longing with board meetings and billion-dollar deals. Then, on a rainy evening, she entered Montclair for a dinner with her rival Ethan Ward, a wealthy investor who thrived on humiliation. And there, carrying a tray of polished glasses, she saw him. The same steady eyes, the same presence she had never forgotten. But Liam Hayes bowed his head and kept walking as though she were no different than any other diner. To him, she was a client. To her, he was the fire-lit memory she had been chasing for a year. The Montclair dining room glittered that night. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen waterfalls, waiters moved in perfect rhythm, and every guest was dressed to be seen. Charlotte Pierce sat at the center table with Ethan Ward, a man who wore arrogance the way others wore silk. Ethan leaned close, his voice sharp enough for nearby diners to hear. Successful, yes. Beautiful, yes. But still alone, Charlotte. Perhaps that says more than you'd like. His laugh was soft and cruel. Charlotte lifted her glass, refusing to react. Across the room, Liam Hayes adjusted a tablecloth, his daughter Nora waiting quietly near the service door with her crayons. She ran to hug his leg the moment she spotted him. The gesture was innocent, but in that space of wealth and power it felt like defiance. Ethan smirked. Even your rescuer was just a janitor. Imagine if the world knew. He lowered his voice. Sign the merger, Charlotte. Or I'll tell the press how the Ice Queen of Pierce Global was dragged from a fire by a service worker. Her pulse hammered. The gala had nearly killed her once, but it was this moment that made her feel truly suffocated. Ethan wanted her shame, her silence, her compliance. Liam, clearing a nearby table, heard enough. His body shifted instinctively, stepping between Ethan's glare and Charlotte's seat, though he said nothing. His presence was quiet, but it carried weight. The clash sharpened when Ethan gestured toward Liam with mocking disdain. Here he is, the invisible man. Should we ask him to join us? Maybe he'd like to negotiate your future, too. Silverware clattered as the room turned to look. Charlotte's cheeks flushed, not with shame, but with something older fury. She stood her chair scraping against marble. Her eyes found Liam's steady, as they had been the night of the fire. Her voice clear enough to cut through every whisper, I don't have a husband. Can I have a date with you? The dining room froze. Forks slipped, glasses stilled. The CEO, who never revealed her heart, had just spoken words that defied every expectation. Liam blinked, stunned. He hadn't chosen this spotlight, hadn't asked for it. Nora clung to his leg, smiling up at Charlotte with childlike acceptance, as if she already understood. I choose Charlotte, said firmly, her voice carrying to every corner of the restaurant the man who saved me once and keeps saving me every day. Ethan's laugh faltered. He tried to sneer, but the humiliation was already spreading across the faces of the diners. The moment he thought would crush her had instead destroyed him. Liam's reply was quiet, measured, and careful for the little girl at his side. We can have dinner. On time. Nothing more, nothing less. But his calmness drew a storm of whispers. Charlotte had thrown down her gauntlet. Liam had not picked it up, but neither had he walked away. The restaurant erupted in whispers. Phones lifted discreetly, diners capturing the moment that would spread beyond Montclair's gilded walls by morning. But in the eye of the storm stood only three figures: Charlotte, her rival Ethan, and the man in the worn service uniform who had become the center of it all. Ethan sneered, desperate to reclaim control. "You think this man is a savior? Do you even know who he is? Or are you just blinded by some fantasy?" Charlotte's voice cut through. "I know he risked his life for me. That's more than I can say for anyone at this table." But Ethan was ready. He snapped his fingers and an assistant placed a leather folder on the table. He opened it with relish. Inside were records, employment files, old addresses, even hospital bills. Ethan slammed a page down in front of Charlotte. "Your hero," he hissed, "wasn't just a janitor. He's a man who nearly lost custody of his daughter after his wife's death. He's a man drowning in debts." And here Ethan pulled another paper. His late wife Grace Hayes once worked for Pierce Global. "Did you know that?" The room fell into stunned silence. Charlotte froze. Grace Hayes. She remembered the name faintly from a decade ago, an assistant in her father's office, dismissed quietly, under circumstances Charlotte never fully understood. Liam's face went pale. He pulled Nora close, his jaw tightening. "That has nothing to do with tonight," he said quietly. Ethan pressed harder. "It has everything to do with it. Because this man isn't just the one who saved you, Charlotte. He's tied to your family's empire in ways you never imagined. Ask yourself, why did the fire that night bring him to you? Or was it fate dragging ghosts back into your life?" Charlotte's breath caught. She looked at Liam. "Is it true? Did your wife work for my family's company?" Liam's silence was an answer in itself. He finally nodded once, steady but sorrowful. "She did. She left when the weight of your father's world crushed her. She never told me everything, only that she carried secrets too heavy to speak. And now those secrets are standing between us." The revelation cracked the room open. It wasn't just a story of a CEO and a janitor anymore. It was a story of buried ties, of a woman's quiet suffering, of a family empire that had shaped more lives than Charlotte had realized. Tears pricked Charlotte's eyes. Her voice faltered. "My mother always said some debts can't be measured in money. Maybe this is one of them." For Liam, the moment was agony. His wife's ghost, Charlotte's family, the night of the fire, all colliding in a storm of truth he had spent years trying to outrun. And for the diners watching, it was no longer a spectacle. It was something raw, something too human to laugh at. The air in Montclair thickened as though the chandeliers themselves held their breath. Charlotte Pierce stood frozen, the papers spread across the linen tablecloth like shards of glass. Ethan Ward leaned back, smug in his victory. "Do you see now?" he taunted. "Your savior is nothing but a man bound to your family's shame. His wife was discarded by Pierce Global. His debts mark him as weak. And you, Charlotte, you'd risk everything for him." Charlotte's hands trembled as she gathered the pages. One line caught her eye, a resignation letter from Grace Hayes. At the bottom, written in delicate script, were words that struck like thunder. "I leave not because I lack strength, but because I will not raise my child in a world that devours kindness." Charlotte's throat tightened. She remembered her own mother once whispering the same fear, that the Pierce empire demanded too much and gave nothing back. For the first time, she saw her rival's evidence not as a weapon, but as a map, pointing her toward a truth she had long ignored. She lifted her gaze steady now to Liam. "Grace was part of my family's story," she said softly. "And maybe that means you and Nora have always been part of mine." Liam's jaw tightened. "Charlotte, this isn't what I want. I don't need your empire dragging us into its fire again. I just want Nora safe." Ethan cut in with venom. "Then walk away, janitor. Walk back into the shadows where you belong." But before Liam could reply, a small voice broke the tension. Nora, clutching her father's sleeve, looked up at Charlotte. "Miss Charlotte, my mom always said heroes don't wear capes. They just show up. Daddy shows up. And you look like you need someone to show up for you, too. The room went silent. Even Ethan's smirk faltered. Charlotte's eyes brimmed with tears. She knelt so she was eye level with Nora. "You're right," she whispered. "And maybe I've been waiting a very long time for someone like your father to show up for me." She stood, her voice clear, her decision made. "Ethan, you can keep your threats. You can burn contracts, spread stories, destroy markets, but you will never use my fear against me again. I choose my truth. I choose the people who risked something real for me." Ethan's face turned crimson. He slammed his glass down, wine spilling across the white linen. "You'll regret this, Charlotte." But the diners weren't with him anymore. They had seen her vulnerability turned into strength, a woman once untouchable standing tall beside a man in a service uniform and his daughter. Some began to clap softly at first, then louder until the applause filled the restaurant. Liam took Charlotte's hand, hesitant but steady. "I can't promise a life without storms," he said quietly, "but I can promise we'll face them on time together." Her fingers tightened around his. "That's all I've ever wanted." Ethan, defeated, stormed out into the night. And for the first time in years, Charlotte Pierce no longer felt the weight of her empire pressing her into silence. She felt free. The storm had passed, but the ripples were only beginning. By morning, every newspaper in the city would run the headline, "Charlotte Pierce chooses love over power." Some would mock her, others would call it reckless. But for the diners who witnessed it, the story wasn't about scandal. It was about courage. The courage to step toward truth, instead of hiding behind glass walls. That weekend, Charlotte found herself not in a boardroom or a penthouse, but in Liam's modest apartment. The place smelled of tomato soup and laundry detergent. Nora proudly tugged her hand toward the balcony where 3 clay pots held small shoots of lavender, just beginning to push through the soil. "My mom wanted these to grow," Nora explained. "Now we'll grow them together." Charlotte knelt beside the planter, her manicured hands sinking into the dirt. For the first time, she laughed without calculation, the sound carrying into the small kitchen where Liam was stirring soup. The string lights above the balcony flickered on, turning the space into something magical, not because of wealth, but because of warmth. Later, as they ate their simple meal at a small wooden table, Charlotte looked around the apartment. The chipped paint, the clutter of crayons, the scarf draped across a chair, it all felt more like home than any penthouse she had ever lived in. When the dishes were cleared, Nora taped a new drawing to the refrigerator. It showed 3 people standing in a garden of lavender. At the top, in bright letters, "This is my family." Charlotte touched the paper, her eyes wet. Then she turned to Liam. "If you two still need me, I don't want to leave." He didn't give her speeches or promises. He simply placed another bamboo stake in her hand for the lavender pot. "Then stay," he said. On time. The morning light that filtered through their window carried no grandeur, no spotlight. Just an ordinary glow illuminating 3 lives learning to grow together. So I'll leave you with this question. In the end, is family the one you are born into or the one you choose to water day after day until it blooms?